Hey guys, good morning. Today I want to talk to you about something really important and something I consider to be my sewing machine's arch nemesis, and that is lint. I'm getting ready to start an art quilt, and I've been doing a lot of just kind of repetitive things like masks lately, and when you're sewing stuff like that, it can really build up a lot of lint inside your machine down here below your presser feet. And if you're one of the people who have never taken off the base plate of your sewing machine, then you're in for a big surprise. You should probably stop this video right now and take your machine apart and clean it if you've never done this. You really need to think about your sewing machine kind of like you'd think about your vehicle. It has a motor and working parts, and those require a certain amount of maintenance. You can hire professional people to do maintenance on your machines. It can be a little bit pricey. I've had this machine for about 14 years, and honestly, it's only been into a professional one time, and that was because I threw the timing off. And other than that, I pretty much maintain it myself. Now, if you have like an extremely high-end machine, you can afford a high-end machine and you can afford, professional maintenance, then by all means seek that out. But just for me and you and the average sewer, there's a couple things that you can do that will really, add to the life of your machine, regardless of whether it's a professional machine like mine or just a simple home sewer that you purchased at, a big box store. The number one thing is taking off the base plate and making sure you clean out the lint, and then also adding a little bit of oil. Now, when it comes to lint, the main factor is going to be the kind of thread that you're using. Cotton is always going to make more than polyester, and a cheaper cotton, just like the basic little rinky-dink 99-cent spools of thread that you buy anywhere, is going to put way more lint in your machine than a higher-end thread. I typically sew with Isacord. It's the thread that I prefer, and it's polyester, and it's not too bad. But I mean, regardless, if I'm sewing, 150 masks, no matter what, lint is going to happen. Now, I have a bunch of this cheaper cotton thread that a friend gave to me years ago, and she gave me quite a lot of it. And if I'm just sewing some rinky-dink project, a lot of times I'll use this just to use it up. And this puts out probably 5 times the amount of lint as the Isacord does. If I do even one project with this, I'll usually go in and clean my machine out afterwards. You get a lot of dust and lint and things up here too. Your machine can create some static electricity, which obviously is going to attract dust. If you don't use it very often, you should definitely be putting a cover on it. You could sew something cute, but most machines come with a cover. At Quilt and Sew, we used to sew these cute little things. They were called a mouse or something like that. But, they're just little feather dusters that you can use to get, the extra dust and bits and pieces up off the top of your machine. And then most machines, when you purchase them in their little kit, they'll come with one of these little brushes. If you didn't know what this was for, that's what it's for. It's for getting the lint out. And it can get up in spots up in here too. So you get down in there and you take a look and you get your little nylon brush. And once you start brushing, you can really see the little flecks coming out there in the light. But the important thing is if you're doing a lot of heavy sewing, then you should probably be taking your base plate off fairly often and cleaning it out. If you're not sewing all the time, just off and on, do it after a big project or right before you're about to start a big project is also a good time. I probably on a regular basis clean out the lint, once every couple of weeks because I'm sewing constantly. And when it comes to oiling, I'd say I make sure to oil my machine at least seasonally. Most of your machines probably came with a little bit of oil too. It doesn't really matter what brand you use, just so long as it's sewing machine oil. You can purchase it at Walmart, Amazon, sewing shops, any of those places. If you have an old thing of oil and it is like really dark and yucky and thick looking, do not put that in your machine. It's just like oil, you'd put in your car. Old oil is not very good. You want light, clean oil and just a little drop. So the first thing I want to show you guys is about taking off your base plate. If you haven't done this before, it's very easy. Do not be afraid. Just make sure that you have a safe place to set your screws aside so that you don't lose them, because those are important. So I'm going to bring you in closer and show you the horror that is under my base plate. Okay, so my machine has 2 screws here and here. Some of you, if you're sewing on a Bernina, you know, this area of your machine will be down on the front. But for most machines, it's right here where the presser feet are. And all you have to do is take off the screws, take out the screws, set them somewhere safe. But as you can see, even if you look, I'm not sure if you can see this, there's even lint all up in these little cracks up in here. You know, no lint left behind. I'd get all of that out, and a lot of times I'll flip it over, and even, you know, you can see up in these areas there's lint. But what I really want to show you is what is down in here. So as you can see from sewing masks and things, there's a good bit even just here on the surface. You do not want any of that. You want to take out your little the word for this is escaping me right now, but the little pocket that holds your bobbin thread, your bobbin case. But you can see, again, lint everywhere. And then really down in here, this is where it starts to get really, really nasty. There is a lot in there. And you can take your little brush. I mean, look at that. And this machine, I probably cleaned this out a month ago. You know, I've been doing a good bit of sewing for Christmas, but like I said, it builds up faster than you think. This right here, if you're not aware, is a magnet. And so that magnet holds this metal piece stable when I'm sewing. And if you start having issues where your machine is jamming up or your bobbin's rocking around, a lot of times it's because this magnet is covered in lint and it's not holding the bobbin case stable the way it should be. So I'm going to speed this up a little for you, and you can watch just how I get all this lint out. Your machine should have come with a nylon brush. It's usually something fairly small. You can purchase larger ones like this. I've had this one for a while. It's just made by Dritz. I think I got it at probably Joann's. You can see it's gotten a lot of use over the years. You can also use something like a Q-tip, but be mindful, a Q-tip has lint of its own, and if you're jamming it down there in the parts, it can get stuck down in there, and you definitely don't want that to happen. So if you're using a Q-tip to clean your machine, just be very careful. Use it to lift out the lint. Don't go jamming it down inside those working parts. You can also order small attachments for your vacuum cleaner, believe it or not, that you can stick down inside your machine. I ordered some of those a couple years ago, but honestly, with a little bit of regular maintenance like this, I've never had enough lint down inside my machine that they've ever actually provided to, any real use for me. So I rarely take them out and use them. So I said I was going to speed this up, but I actually changed my mind because it's not going to take very long. The first thing I like to do is get my big brush and really just brush out as much as I possibly can from these top areas. Sometimes down in here, these little cracks of your presser foot can actually build up like a whole big chunk of lint down in here. So if your brush has a nice little tip like this, that's a good way to use it. I also like to get it down in and around the curves here below the bobbin case. Another thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn your dial or, put your presser foot up and down so that you can see the opposite side of the area there, and then just again brushing everything out as best you can. You can, if you have a skinny little brush like this, stick it down in the inside. Just be careful, there are working parts in here. You don't want to jam it in there or bend it or snap it or lose it. As you can see, there's a good bit hidden down in there. So like I said, you can purchase those little vacuum cleaner parts, but if you do these kinds of things fairly often, you shouldn't really need something like that. It's a pretty easy, simple thing to do, and you'll definitely notice your machine running better when you're finished. Just take time to really look down in all those little cracks and crevices. You can give it a couple good puffs, try to blow it out of the way. And, once you get it to the point where it looks like it's, pretty clean, it may take you longer depending how much buildup you have, then it's a good time to add a little oil. So this little spot right down in here actually has a bit of a wick down in there. You only need really 1 drop of oil, just 1. If you hear your machine sounding like it's running a little rough, a lot of times that's because it could use some oil, just like your car. And yes, I say oil funny. All my daycare kids make fun of me. I've been living in the South for too long, I guess. You know, a good friend of mine who did professional machine maintenance told me that you can pretty much oil any moving part. So as you can see, hopefully, when I push my needle down, these little spaces here are rocking back and forth, these little joints. So when I oil my machine, you know, once a quarter, I will put just a little bit in those moving areas. Again, it's just like a vehicle, you know. You can oil anything that needs to move. I also will put just a tiny bit on my needle bar and spread it around, because that's going to bring that back up inside the machine. Again, make sure that before you put oil in these areas too, that you also take the time to remove the lint, because oil and lint together can get pretty nasty and gummed up and gross, and that's something we're definitely trying to avoid. Now you just give it one last look over, you know, and once it's clean and you've got your oil in there, you know, take the time to take a look at your bobbin case here and get that extra lint off. There's no point in cleaning it all out and then reintroducing more lint. Put that back in there. Put your bobbin case back in. Put your top back. Oh, put your needle up first. Top back on. And definitely do not forget to put your screws back in place. And there you go. That's all you have to do. If you are starting a project, like I said, I'm going to be starting an art quilt next, and it's a much more delicate project. And I don't want to avoid as many pitfalls as possible. If I'm sewing a mask and I screw one up, it's no big deal. But if I'm sewing an art quilt and I screw something up, it's definitely going to make an impact on the way the quilt looks at the end of the day. So I want to make sure that my machine is in tip-top shape before I start any really important, delicate project. All right, so there you go. Alright guys, I hope this little bit of information helped you out. Like I said, if you have never cleaned out your machine, you need to do it. It's like running your car with never changing the oil. You know, you need to do it, or you're just going to run that machine into the ground. And you'll find, I promise, that if you keep your machine, you know, clean and tidy, it's going to run a lot better over time. Plus, you just feel like a little more experienced sewer who's taking better care of something that you spent a decent amount of money on and invested in. Because even those home sew machines that you buy at a big box store, they're not cheap, you know. So just like a vehicle, you want to try and keep it running as long as possible. So if you guys have any other questions about maintenance, please by all means put it in the comments. Like I mentioned before, I had taken a whole bunch of videos over the summer of just troubleshooting with my machine as I was working, and Cadence managed to delete all of them. So today, when I was getting ready to sit down, I figured it would be a good time to start those videos over. So I hope you guys have a wonderful new year, and I will see you very soon. Take care.